Let's talk about a 1-4-5 progression where we will play the blues. We talked about the cycle of fourths, circle of fifths, and how each chord in the cycle functions as a 5 chord. Well, you can play the blues even if you have a 1-4-5 back to the key of G, 1, C being 4, D is 5. You can play, obviously, we're in the key of G there. You could play that diatonically. You could play your G scale. But if we play the blues, we're going to treat every chord as a dominant chord. So it's going to have the flat 7. So let's say we're playing G and we're playing the blues. So now the C will have that flat 7, the dominant 7, and the D will have it as well. Alright, well, every chord that we play then is actually functioning as a 5 chord. So that tension that wants to resolve to the next chord is always there. It's never gone. It's the blues. So what we can do, as usual, as we can with anything, is we can play the arpeggio. So we're in G, play the 3 notes that make up the chord. You go to C, goes to D. Okay, that's the 1, 3, and 5 that make up the chord. It's always the best thing to do if you don't know what else to do. Okay, then we can add the flat 7 in this case. We're playing the blues, so we're playing the flat 7. We're going to do the arpeggio. Right. So that's the G arpeggio plus the flat 7. We go to C. Okay. Remember, when we play an arpeggio, all we're doing is really playing a chord, but we're articulating single notes out of it. So here's D. Flat 7, it's also there. Okay, so everything you play then in the blues could include those notes. All right, if we want to keep that bluesy feel, we could also do the major blues, which we've talked about in an earlier chapter. So for G, remember the major blues is based on the major pentatonic 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. I add the flat 3rd. Go to C, I play the major blues. Go to D, play the major blues. Okay. All right. Now, one thing that we've not talked about yet that you can do is, let's say we go back to our arpeggio. We add the flat 7. Okay. You can also play a full 7-note scale that includes that flat 7 note. So if we go back to G, say we play a G major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7th note of the scale is F sharp. We flat that, which we've already done for our arpeggio. We have F. Well, you can play that full scale now. When you get to the end of the scale, play the F instead of the F sharp. It's the flat 7. We call that mixolydian, and that means that you're actually playing the 5th mode. In this case, 5th mode of C. And you can refer to the book about about modes and figure out how that works. But in this case, what it really means is we're playing a G that has a scale that has the flat 7, goes to C. Playing a C scale that has the flat 7, it goes to D. And a D scale with the flat 7. Those are all called mixolydian scales, right? And so that's the other option. So when you're playing the blues, you really could work up to that and play. You want to play as many notes as you can, or at least have the option of playing as many notes as you can, so the mixolydian scale would be the full gamut of that. Now, one thing you can do too, if we're playing 1-4-5, is you can play the G minor pentatonic over the 1 and the 4. You actually could play it over the 5 too, and some players will. We'll talk about that in just a second. So if I'm playing 1-4-5, I could play G minor pentatonic. Remember, that's 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. Reach back here for a flat 7 too. Alright, so I can play that over the G and the C. When it goes to C, so I can play the same notes. When it goes to D, I can do the same thing. Can do it there too, but the G minor pentatonic has a B flat in it. And so over a D chord, here's a B flat. That can be a little funky sound and can be a little much. And so what we can ideally do, we don't always have to do it, but ideally, especially if things were moving a little slower and you can hear all the notes very clearly, is when it goes to the 5, switch to the minor pentatonic of the 5 chord. Okay, so I can play G minor pentatonic over the G and the C. I don't have to switch to C minor pentatonic here. G G minor pentatonic. Then when it goes to D, I'm going to switch to the D minor pentatonic. Okay? Now, anytime you can play your minor pentatonic, you also can play the blues scale that accompanies it. In other words, if you got the green light, it looks like you can play, you know, it's a prudent thing to play the minor pentatonic, you also can play the blues scale. So if I say, well, I can play my minor pentatonic, G minor pentatonic over G and C, that also means I can add the blue note. That was the C sharp, okay? Still can do that when it goes to C. Right. Now when it goes to D, I'm going to switch to the D minor pentatonic, make it a blues scale. So there's that sharp 11, flat 5. And you'll hear the chord change a little more when it goes to the 5, and it'll create a little bit more, a little more of a change when it goes to that chord, and it can make it a little more interesting. Okay, and so we're going to play. I'm going to get Mickey out here to join me, and we're going to play a 1-4-5 progression, and we'll kind of illustrate how that would sound. All right, so we got Mickey back with me to play some rhythm here. We're going to do a 1-4-5 progression, like a country bluegrass blues. Where what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the arpeggio with the dominant 7 through the first round. I'll do that over each chord, and then the next time I'll play the major blues, and I'll do that over each chord, and then I'll play the Mixolydian scale over each chord. So the last one would be G major scale with the flat 7, same for C, so on and so forth. So we'll just go through it 3 times like that, and here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so we're going to take the 1-4-5 progression, and we'll call it a country blues. And we're going to this time play G minor pentatonic over all 3 chords. And as I mentioned in the chapter, when you get to the D chord or the 5 chord, sometimes the G minor pentatonic might rub just a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is the second time we play through the progression, I will switch. In other words, I'll play G minor pentatonic. C will still be G minor pentatonic. When we get to D, I'm going to play D minor pentatonic. And I'm going to play actually the blues scale. Remember, that adds the 1 note, so I have a 6-note scale. So it's G minor pentatonic with the 1 note that makes it the blues scale. I want to have that as an option anyway. Okay? All right, so here we go. 1, 2, 3.